Story 1. She was an abusive boss who made Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada look like Mother Teresa. She put us through years of hell but was eventually fired for her behavior and moved across the country. It has been a while, but I still look forward to one day reading her obituary. Story 2. I was driving my car with a passenger and swerved to run over and kill a raccoon on purpose because they knew how much I loved them. This was more than 15 years ago. I never spoke to them again, but I will never forget it. Story 3. She had her second husband killed by her oldest son. She fled the state with his and her two youngest children. She met me and wooed me with sex and looks until I had them all move in with me. 2 years later, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and 2 different state police departments blasted through my front door with search warrants, raided my home, and took all my computers, electronics, and all of my and her belongings. 3 weeks later, she went to jail and then faced trial. She was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and aggravated persuasion of her son. She was sentenced to 33 years in prison. Meanwhile, they charged me with piracy. I downloaded thousands of songs and music from LimeWire and Napster around 2004 to 2005. I had to serve 6 months in county jail and 5 years probation. Additionally, that conviction made me a felon. I lost my job and career forever. My daughter hates me and so does her mother. And much more. Guilty by association. I knew nothing about it until it was too late. I hate that woman. This all happened in 2009. Story 4. He was unpleasant with me, but when others were around, he was kind to me and everyone else. He would only show his true character when no important people were present. Story 5. She abused me, allowed me to be molested, and laughed when I told her about it as an adult. She was never there for me like she should have been. I hate my mother. However, I thank her for showing me how not to be to my own children, especially since I now have 3 girls of my own. Story 6. Mine is not really about what they did, but the lack of remorse for that deed puts them as the sole member of my hate list. Story 7. Hid my dad's medication for his terminal cancer in the car because the night sweats they caused were annoying her. In the meantime, she was still sleeping with her ex, destroyed his house along with her kids, literally used pads and dog waste everywhere, would not let us visit, tipped his catheter over while he was bedbound at that point and left him alone for 2 days, had him convinced that people only cared for him because they loved her and that if he left her, no one would care. To top it off, she actually worked in healthcare. When he died, she was not invited to the funeral. On that day, she left a note on my grandparents' grave, his parents, talking about how much she loved him and hoped she made him happy. Vile, disgusting woman. Story 8. A jealous woman in the office who was senior to me tried to get me fired because she thought I might take her job. She told terrible lies about me and pushed me physically out of the toilets into the corridor. She had harassed other women in the past to make them leave, anyone she saw as a threat to her position. Fortunately, other members of staff stood up for me, and I was promoted and moved to another department. I was newly divorced at the time and supporting a 3-year-old son. Story 9. She had problems within herself and was unable to deal with them. It is unknown to me, her daughter, what those issues specifically were, but they involved power, control, self-esteem, and narcissism. These issues were hidden from others outside the family. Since I was very small, she made sure everything was filtered through me. The rage and anger were blamed on me. She desperately needed me to pay for those things and be the outlet. My parents agreed she would give up the job she loved to stay home and raise me. Only my father loved her, and to keep this, she did it. She made sure to let me know I was to expect nothing from her, ever, because she had already paid the price. I was on my own since I was little because expecting love, help, or support was too much and a burden. When I stood up to her as an adult, she turned the entire family against me. I got nothing, as she had promised when I was small. Examples include bullying me, then becoming angry when I would not stand up to other bullies and siding with them, and punishing me when I tried to stand up for myself. She alienated me from anything that could make me feel better. There was mental manipulation that others could not see, and I could not always put my finger on. Terms like gaslighting, narcissistic personality disorder, and deny, attack, reverse victim and offender were not known to this little girl in the 1980s. All I knew was that my mother hated me, and I had to be very careful around her, manipulating her feelings so she would not get angry at my existence. Now I am 45, and she is dead, having died with no funeral and no loved ones except my father. No friends. No grandchildren she wanted but did not have. I had not spoken to her in 12 years. I felt empty. The silver lining is that I was able to get therapy as an adult and have great friends, partners, and love around me. I have decided to give all my love to others and will never make anyone else feel those feelings of worthlessness. Not even strangers. I am the borderline cheesy friendly person at work, or the stranger who makes random small talk. I just want to fill the world with better things. It is because I never forget her and that hate is a part of me, and I will reverse it. Story 10. She moved in with us because her brother needed to move out in the middle of a lease, and she needed a place to stay. Her brother was a good friend, so it seemed like a good idea. One day, she just started moving out over a weekend. We did not make a fuss about it. She was basically a kid, so whatever. Then she came back a month later demanding the part of the security deposit her brother had paid when we all moved in together. We explained how security deposits work to her. We would not return it until we moved out. She was apparently very upset about that because she called our landlord and told him that we were a drop house for illegal immigrants and that we dealt cocaine out of the house. At the time in the area, the news was always full of major drop houses getting busted. There would be a helicopter circling above a house and 50 people handcuffed on the sidewalk in the news. I imagine she was hoping to get our house raided, but she did not want to make a false report herself, so she tried to get the landlord to do it instead. He emailed me and I told him she was irrational and it was dropped. In my opinion, she was trying to get my dogs killed. I do not think I hate anyone like I hate that girl. She must not have realized we knew she did that because she put me down as a reference on a job application later and did not get the job for some reason. Story 11. I'm going to get personal instead of speaking on the broad scale of my country. My best friend once accused my child of being a spoiled brat at her first communion because she wasn't actively talking and being bubbly with everyone. My daughter was smiling and giggling, but she was incredibly shy, painfully shy to the point of bursting into tears and being scared to talk. She is now almost 19 years old and has never given me a single minute of trouble. Apparently, she didn't say thank you for a gift. Nobody else realized or noticed, and I'm sure it was just a mistake or she said it and they didn't hear because nobody else noticed. My friend then went into a tirade about what a spoiled brat she is. What clinched the deal was her wife saying that if that were her child, she would have yanked her by the arm, dragged her into the parking lot, and made her stand in the cold pouring rain as punishment. That was it. My daughter was 7. It was a wonderful day. Everyone had fun, and she did an amazing job. Other than my best friend and her wife, everyone complimented how wonderful, sweet, and well-behaved she was that whole day. Oh, and just a little extra tidbit. They both made fun of the second grader with a lisp who did a reading at the communion. I was done. Story 12. I don't hate anyone. I refuse to give anyone that much power over me. However, the people I would rather not be in the same room with are so messed up in their own heads that it spilled over into my life. They said and did things that I could not and would not process, things that hurt my feelings and affected me and people I care about. But I refuse to let them and their ignorance and harmful tendencies ruin my life. Story 13. Cheated and gaslit me, making me feel crazy after claiming to be my protector for years. Story 14. The person who killed 2 members of my family in a car accident, which was entirely their fault. The law did not take any action against them, but I am hoping that karma will. I have entrusted it to God. Story 15. He took my innocence when I was just 6 months old and continued to hurt me until I was 4. Then they removed me from that horrible situation. Story 16. He raped me repeatedly, sometimes by stealthing or by pulling down my lounge pants and forcing himself on me if I bent over to get things out of my weekend bag. It was always non-violent but still coercive. He got me pregnant by sneakily removing a condom that I had to beg him to wear. He knew I did not want children, and I knew that he wanted them eventually. We dated for only 11 months. He would nitpick everything about me. My nail length, my hair, my eyebrows, everything. He once held a gun point blank to my head, said it was not loaded, and even when I begged him to put it down and stop, he still pulled the trigger while pointing it at my head to prove it was not loaded. One time I was lying on the bed with my arm hanging over the edge while he was changing. He then wiped his naked buttocks along my arm, which smelled terrible because of his poor hygiene and not showering as often as a person should. When I terminated my unwanted pregnancy, he got mad at me for killing his child. The antibiotics I had to take damaged my stomach lining, and it still affects me 12 years later. The antibiotics also caused a yeast infection, and even while I was treating that and supposed to abstain from sex for a short time, he pressured me into having sex. When I was feeling depressed once, I was sitting on the floor playing my piano keyboard. He scooped me up, carried me to the bed, and removed my pants. You know the rest. Story 17. Warped my friend group into an excuse to bully and belittle each other, to the point of beating me up in my sleep during a boys' trip. After fighting them off, thankfully it was the last day, I cut those people off forever. Story 18. My ex who abused me, cheated on me, lied to me, used me for money, and many other things. May he rot in hell and go to jail soon for the 2 years of domestic violence I had to endure. Story 19. I don't hate anyone, but I've had a few people over the years who really hurt me at points in my life. I got divorced and was depressed and in a bad way, crying for 2 to 3 days straight. It was horrible. I went back to work after being signed off for 2 weeks, and my boss asked if I was ready to return. I said no, but the doctor wouldn't sign me off longer. The very next day at work, I forgot to inform the depot about a delivery being canceled. My boss called me and became very angry on the phone. I remember sitting in my car, listening to him shouting, thinking about how awful and horrible this person was. I reported him, but he was friends with human resources, so I had to leave. The job wasn't the problem. I was good at it, but he pushed me out when I was already struggling. Another time was during the COVID-19 pandemic. 2 female bosses, a regional manager and my line manager, forced me and a colleague out of the business because they had fallen out with my previous manager. They made me redundant in November, about 5 weeks before Christmas and just as lockdown was starting. I lived alone and was unemployed. They didn't care at all. I went to Citizens Advice, but because I was employed for less than 2 years, I had no defense. Also, I don't hate my mom, but she treats me as if she is disappointed in me and the things I enjoy, like my animals and video games. She doesn't like those things and has constantly criticized me my entire life, insisting I should do what she says. She cheated on my dad, and they divorced when I was 8 years old. As I said, hate isn't the right word, but I don't like my mom's side of the family, so I don't spend time with them. That side of misery ends with me when I die. Story 20. Put me through 2 years of poverty, neglect, parentification, and emotional abuse. They were deep in opioid addiction and forgot they had 2 teenagers who still needed basic care. I tried to create happy moments during those years, but I didn't truly live until after graduating and moving out. Story 21. Called me a child abuser and groomer simply because I love and support my transgender child and provide him with the affirming care he needs to live a full and happy life. But I do not hate them. I hate that they are so stuck in their bigoted beliefs that they cannot learn and grow or at least have the basic respect to keep their mouths shut about something that does not affect them personally. Story 22. She ghosted me and came back to apologize 6 months later. We were friends for a while. I invited her on a vacation with my best friend, but she stranded him halfway across the country because she met someone on a dating app. I forgave her a year later. She came to my house to do laundry and ended up sleeping with my roommate. I finally met someone who cared about my existence, and I have not spoken to her since. Story 23. I was told that all I have to do is cook, clean, and have children in the future. So there is no point in studying further and wasting my father's money. I proved that chauvinistic man wrong, and today I am more successful and capable than his 3 sons. Story 24. My best friend's former business partners misappropriated over $200,000 from the business. When they were caught, they became defensive and impossible to deal with, mistreating and berating the staff, not doing any work, and still expecting to be paid their salary. This business has a staff of over 50 people, and these former partners showed no concern for the employees or my friend, nor did they care that their actions could ruin the lives of more than 50 people. When my friend finally got them to the negotiating table to buy them out, they were even more difficult. They dragged out the negotiations out of spite and used the business as their personal hangout and party spot at every opportunity, leaving the place a mess for my friend to clean up so the staff did not have to. After several months of back and forth, he finally got them out. The business is doing better today but has not fully recovered from the damage they caused. I try not to hate anyone, but I strongly condemn these two individuals. Story 25. My uncle abandoned his second wife, who was from another country, when she had dementia. He would not allow her to be moved closer to her family, yet he never visited her and got back together with his first wife. He also stole from my grandparents while my grandfather was in the hospital following heart surgery. Story 26. Said people of my ethnicity deserve to die, and if a tragedy strikes my country, nothing of value will be lost. Story 27. Screenshotted messages sent in confidence were manipulated and posted on Facebook. The person then deleted the posts and blocked me so I could not see them. This friend was emotionally abusive towards me, gaslighting me, and was not a true friend. They dated my exes and constantly put me down. I will always be annoyed at myself for not listening to those around me when they said she was a horrible person. I lost many friends because of this person and what they did. Story 28. He was physically abusive and tried to humiliate me in public. I think he was a psychopath because he tried to embarrass me all the time in public and tried to strangle me a few times when I was nothing but patient with him. Story 29. Stole from my recently widowed mother. Mostly rings, including some my father had given her 15 years ago. If I ever see him again, I would cross the street just to spit on him. Story 30. Controlled every aspect of my life at school for a year, humiliated me, put me in extremely unpleasant situations for no good reason, just to try to break me more. This was an adult. Story 31. Experience approximately 30 years of constant verbal and mental abuse, while his wife inflicted similar abuse with greater intensity. It was my brother and sister-in-law, and to be honest, if he reads this, I am not interested in his opinion. They destroyed my sense of trust and harmed my physical health, all disguised as tough love. I cannot decide which one I want to see go first so the other suffers, because they are the only people who still communicate with them. One has chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, the other will. Time is running out. Story 32. Ignored my child and grandchild because she was mad at me and her son, my husband. She believed she did nothing wrong, even though she has treated our son and our unborn daughter poorly. Once she moves out of our house, we will go no contact. I despise her. Story 33. Threatened to have me assaulted by her boyfriend if I didn't convince my dad to give her the money to kick him out, even though she was the one who brought the boyfriend back into the home repeatedly. She also had the audacity to yell at me when he slapped me as a 14-year-old, and I told him to keep his hands off of me. Forget you, Mom. Story 34. Came back into my life promising she would make it work, only to do the same thing she did last time. She left me for someone else, did not return the ring or anything I gave her, and dumped me in a letter because she was too spineless to do it herself. Story 35. I had an accounting career at 2 private golf and country clubs, one for 21 years and the second for 16 years. My work was exemplary and rewarded. We got a new general manager who was the worst bully you could imagine. He was very charismatic and fooled the membership. He would purposely hold back my work that needed his approval, throw my reports at me, and demote me to receptionist. He tried to reduce my salary by $20,000. Other employees stuck it out and one quit, but I held out. One day I had had enough. I had a doctor's appointment at lunch. I arrived in tears, and she asked me if I had had enough. She immediately sent an email to the controller that I was out on sick leave for 2 months. I was 6 months away from retirement. I hated him with a passion. My confidence was completely destroyed. I came to believe I was totally incompetent. It took a few years of therapy to get over it. The man died of cancer 3 years later. I did not care. Story 36. They tried to get me fired because they thought I was gay and knew our supervisor did not like gay people either. I am not gay. Story 37. I decided to drive under the influence with my child and crashed into someone. Now I am stuck with post-traumatic stress disorder, lots of medication, and therapy because of the events that took place when I found out how I found out. Story 38. One of them was someone in whom I saw my own worst behavior but had no remorse. I watched someone sneak up on a man when his back was turned and punch him unexpectedly. The person he punched was already tired and on the ground after fighting with someone else. He had to crouch down first to hit him. Then he raised his arms and celebrated as he walked away. It reminded me of a night when I was really messed up on alcohol and pills, and when I came to my senses, I was told I had hit one of my friends in the face. I felt horrible and received everything I deserved in response. Watching him do something similar was something I could never forget, especially as he celebrated afterward. Story 39. Still plays Disney dad while subtly influencing the kids negatively through how he interacts with them. Story 40. He told me he loved me and we got engaged after he asked me 3 times. The next day, he took it all back. Then he proceeded to humiliate me for 5.5 hours on a train back from London, even though I kept trying to change seats. Story 41. For a long time, I was that person and I would not stop being self-destructive. I do not really think I hate anyone as much as I hated myself. Story 42. Myself. I hate myself the most. I did not take enough care of myself, did not fight for my rights, did not give myself the time I deserved, did not treat myself as if I were worth it, did not consider myself important and thought I could do it on my own. Now I am suffering. I am completely losing my sanity. Story 43. Sexually harassed multiple acquaintances and friends of mine. Treated me poorly when we lived together, blamed everything on me, and called me a dumbass when he made mistakes or was at fault. Tried to manipulate other mutual friends to make me seem like a bad person to them as well. Story 44. My wife and I divorced before the adoption of our daughter was finalized. She convinced the birth mother, my niece, to sign over parental rights only to her and excluded me from the adoption. Story 45. I worked with an alcoholic, narcissistic, sociopathic medical doctor. That was his diagnosis, not mine, although I agree. He was in love with me and also envious of my life. He decided to destroy me. I have given myself permission to hate him until we die. He knows and feels that it is deserved. I am at the end of my life, and he confessed everything. No apology, though. He is only sorry that he drove me away. No regrets for how he impacted my health and life. He was sobbing over how much he has missed me. Story 46. Blame me for his failed marriage, throw random household items at me, and leave me with a PDF file, knowing he was a PDF file and having seen it himself in person. Basically, he said everything was my fault and was horribly jealous that my mom prioritized me over him. It was my dad. Story 47. Tricked, gaslit, and manipulated me creatively since childhood. Smeared my reputation out of jealousy multiple times. Shredded my degree and all my honor certificates. Planted items in my room. Exploited me financially. Abused me physically and mentally. Laced my drink and left me with her friend. Did all that while constantly blaming me and calling me names, claiming I was evil. When asked several times what I did that was evil to hurt her, she stormed out and a few days later would talk to me like nothing ever happened. That was my older sister with oppositional defiant disorder. Story 48. Worked with me. Made my job harder. Would not do the bare minimum of his own job. Lies to me, the supervisor, the representatives, and the customers. The supervisor would not fire him. Story 49. Just lying. Completely misrepresented who she was to deceive people for money. Took credit after she imitated me. Copied everything I did, including the name of her child. I had to unfollow, unfriend, and block all contacts from this sociopathic fake person. She is still out there deceiving others because now she is an influencer. Story 50. Moved in with my daughter and her daughters, controlled everything they said and did, Did nothing around the house but buy baseball cards and watch television. Tried to keep me from seeing my grandchildren, although I fought him for 9 years and did keep seeing them. Made her sign a cohabitation agreement stating that if he leaves, she has to sell her house and give him half the money, left and took half and bought himself a nicer house, and took whatever he wanted while she was at work. She allowed it. Story 51. She took my father away from me, disrespected me in an unforgivable way, and spread untrue rumors to the family about me being a spoiled brat because I simply wanted an apology from her. She can rot in hell. Story 52. Germany 1989. A fellow soldier who we will call Blue Falcon. He was a well-known backstabber and sycophant. He threw me under the bus and lied to the desk sergeant. I had just finished a 24-hour guard duty and was heading to bed. The man said I had a Red Cross phone call, so I ran down to the desk and asked about it because I knew my father was unwell. The sergeant said he did not know about a Red Cross phone call, but had been told by Blue Falcon that I volunteered to take his 24-hour guard shift. I denied it and showed proof that I had just completed 24 hours of duty. No success, so I ended up with 48 hours of duty while he sneaked downtown to be with his girlfriend. He also told the sergeant that he received a weekend pass from our platoon sergeant, which was another lie. On Monday morning formation, he played dumb and managed to avoid trouble. Blue Falcon was eventually transferred to another unit for his own safety, where we later learned he was arrested because his girlfriend was 16 and he was 20. Story 53. She got mad at me for telling the truth about our abusive mother, so she called the Department of Social Services on me in an attempt to have my children removed from my care. The case was dismissed as unfounded, but the experience was traumatic for all of us, especially my youngest child. I will never forgive her. Story 54. Cheated on my mother a number of times while she had cancer and was on her deathbed. He told me he almost killed himself right in front of me, purposely making his health decline, and then died a few months after my mother did. Story 55. My father's mother called my mother a whore, a money-grabbing whore, before they got married and found out about my big brother. When my mother passed, I happened to be the one picking up the phone the following morning. We were all taking turns. I said, "Oh, hello." She was a term of endearment she never deserved and never received again after that day. The nasty piece of work then complained about all her ailments for a good 5 minutes. Never mentioned my mother, my brothers, or me. She had been informed the night before of my mother's death. Then she asked to speak to my father. I told him there and then that I was done with her. To add insult to injury, the sympathy card was addressed to my father only and had a verse about moving on and finding someone new highlighted for his reading pleasure. She died in January. She disowned her own daughter before she died of aggressive cancer a few years ago and accused her of stealing her money. Side note, she wasn't. This woman never showed remorse for any of these or the innumerable other wretched things she did and died alone, which suited me just fine. Story 56. They would try to get information about everything I was trying to do so they could mess it up or do anything to be better at it than me or celebrate anyone else, saying that person is why I am useless. Story 57. My wife's evil stepmother. I had heard how awful she was to my wife as a child, which already made her a vile person in my opinion. However, I witnessed her complete lack of basic decency when my father-in-law passed away, and his children became involved in a 5-year legal battle with a thieving, lying, cruel, and utterly shameless person like her. I hope she dies knowing how despised she is by everyone who has had the misfortune of dealing with her. Story 58. He is now a hedge fund manager. I had completely forgotten his name until my high school reunion invitation. Story 59. I was in the emergency room and thought I was dying. I have a rare brain condition. My estranged father saw me and pretended to care. He then tried to use my illness against my mother to avoid paying child support for me. Story 60. Became a Jehovah's Witness and tried to force that cult onto me. They only celebrate anniversaries, so my mom decided to get married to a guy on my birthday. Every year, she would text me on my birthday telling me about the gifts she received and her big plans for her anniversary, while completely ignoring the fact that it was my birthday. Story 61. My ex-wife abused me mentally and physically. She abused my children and cheated on me. She became involved with drugs and alcohol and prostituted herself to pay for her drug addiction. After I divorced her, she and a friend broke into my home, stole various items, ransacked the house, and caused significant damage inside. I filed charges, but she was released without penalty and only had to complete 2 weeks of community service. The judge expressed understanding of her anger. She was never required to pay restitution. The insurance company filed a claim against her, which the judge denied, stating that I shattered her life with the divorce and again expressed understanding of her anger. I feel my deep-seated resentment toward her is justified. Story 62. Like personally or overall? Overall, I just generally dislike my fellow Americans. Always have, and they seem intent on doing nothing to change that. Personally, I had a work friend abandon me when my toxic ex-coworker, I know, I shouldn't have dated a coworker, threw me to the wolves and spread every lie about me to every coworker who would listen. I had actually known my once friend far longer than he knew either of us combined, yet he chose to side with her on every one of the often contradictory lies she told about me. If you ever read this, Jose M., I want you to know that I knew all along that after my troubles, your confession to my ex would fall flat and my ex would continue stringing you along. I am deeply disappointed in you. Story 63. Builds a dictatorship, starts wars, commits war crimes, steals from the citizens, and kills people. Story 64. Plays the victim in every situation and, to punish me for calling out her lies, refuses to let me see my grandson. Story 65. That spawn of Satan turned my own mother against her children. He stole every penny of hers. He was a money-hungry bastard. She believed his lies and bullying. She disowned my autistic brother, myself, and grandchildren when she was in her 90s. As a Christian, Jesus says we should not hate anyone. I prayed for him for years to change. Then in my heart, I knew I had to change. But by that time, it was too late, as he is currently burning in hell, and my mother is in heaven. I know that for certain because I had a dream that she and I had the most wonderful loving embrace. In our hearts, we were okay. All was forgiven and forgotten. When I woke up, I knew that she had passed. Story 66. Tried to force me into being polyamorous when she lost interest in me but still wanted to use me because I let her move in way too fast after she lost her job. She manipulated me about my memory issues from epilepsy. I lost about 100 pounds when we were together and had a seizure, breaking my years-long streak of none. Of course, she blamed me for it. The final straw was outright assault, and I was foolish enough to believe her when she said it would not happen again. Took one day and she did it again, so I kicked her out. She had been living with her dad nearby, so she had somewhere to go. Then she lied to the police about me. Those charges were dropped, but I then told them the truth about her. She pled guilty and is currently in court-ordered rehabilitation. I strongly dislike her. I moved to a new city and restarted my life after getting away from her. Story 67. Did not listen to anything I said. Never acknowledged anything that I did. Constantly put me down. Refused to talk just because he did not want to. Story 68. It was my pharmacist in charge when I was in retail pharmacy. She criticized me and my other coworkers in favor of our team lead, saying we would be nothing without the team lead. She threatened my job when I told others about what she said. She leaked my medical information. I was a teenager, so I did not realize the severity of this. She rushed me during my 15-minute breaks, despite the policy requiring a 30-minute break. She called people lazy for not wanting to stay late. She reprimanded me because I could not cover someone else's shift on my first day of college. She would get angry at customers and throw their prescriptions around. She was genuinely a miserable, awful person, and that job affected my attitude towards work for a long time. Story 69. My stepmom, sister, and dad. Sorry, it's a lot, but I need to vent and let go of things. My sister has treated me badly for years. She is one of the rudest and most stuck-up people. She would make fun of me with her friends, called me fat, and gave me a hard time about struggling with my learning disability. She treated my friends badly too. The worst was when my mom died, and she blamed me for it, even though she was never there, never visited, and never tried to help out. She threw a dramatic fit at her funeral, claimed it was anxiety, and demanded it be rescheduled. She is just a terrible person. I called her out on it, and we haven't spoken in years. I'm done apologizing. We used to fight because that's what kids do, but she's still holding grudges from 40 years ago. I've already apologized several times for being a kid. It's whatever. I've moved on. My dad and I used to be close. He wasn't there growing up. He was always at work, and in his opinion, putting a roof over my head was support enough. It wasn't. What really hurt was when my mom died. I was the one who found her. It was very traumatic for me. He had a similar experience, so you'd think he would understand and be there for me. He left almost instantly to find another woman. He said it was what my mother would have wanted. That is not true. My mother was super jealous and possessive. She used to cause scenes and fights if he even looked at another woman. I remember promising her to look after him because she believed he would be too heartbroken to go on. My stepmom obviously has something not right with her. What kind of person hooks up with a man and moves in with him less than 2 months after his spouse dies? The sheets aren't even cold yet. You're literally sleeping in the exact spot where her body was. Before anyone jumps to conclusions, my mother died after a long battle with heart disease. Anyway, this woman moves in and completely takes over. She never wanted kids but got involved with a man who has them. She has never once tried to get to know me as a person, but would make judgments about me. I'm not a churchgoer, so I'm a bad person? She's very controlling. Anytime she doesn't get her way, she gives ultimatums. I was thrown out of my house because she didn't want me there. She had a countdown calendar on the fridge for either I leave or she does. My dad said he didn't want to choose between us. That's so wrong. Parents should always choose their children. It's not even a choice. The thing that hurt the most, though, was we used to fish together. We had been fishing since before I could walk. We had a trip all planned, and the night before, I was very excited. It was the one thing that helped me with my mom's death. The morning of, he got up way before the time he told me and took my stepmom instead. He said, "There wasn't room for you." That broke my heart, and I haven't been able to fish since then because it hurts too much. The worst thing is in April, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer and had to have emergency surgery. The only thing I wanted was to have him there. I could have died. He cared more about my stepmom's dogs and what to do with them than he did about me. If the roles were reversed, I would have found a way to be there for him. I wish I could be done with him, but I still love my dad very much, and it hurts so much. I have told him how I felt, but he doesn't care. Story 70. She psychologically abused me as a child and teenager. She was my stepmother, the typical stereotype like in Cinderella. Story 71. A lifetime of subtly berating and attempting to control me and everyone around her. The straw that broke the camel's back was gambling away most of our mother's money, around $500,000. Making all kinds of excuses about where the money was going, then coming clean with more excuses and lies, and somehow getting our mother to take her side, telling me and the police to mind our own business and refusing to press charges. And more. It wasn't all about the money. It was never all about the money. That part is infuriating but forgivable. However, she chose to double and triple down on her lies, even in the face of concrete evidence. It was the lies and manipulation, not the money, Karen. Story 72. My stepfather beat my mother. One of my earliest memories of him is dragging my mother by her hair and threatening to strike her head with a metal ashtray he made. I was 7 years old. He never beat me, but if he had a bad day, he would find something to scream at me about, knowing my mother would defend me, which would lead to their fighting. He did not allow my mother to work, so she has no work experience or qualifications. By the time she escaped him, her health had declined to the point of disability. Story 73. 1. The judge I worked with was very difficult. She was replacing my real boss, and I developed depression. My real boss knew about it and was extremely supportive. I had to tell the replacement judge, who pretended to be supportive but 2 weeks later went behind my back, lied about me to my real boss and colleagues, claiming I wasn't present or working. This was a huge lie and it hurt deeply, especially since I had recently started medication and didn't feel like myself. The girlfriend of my best friend at the time hated me. She stalked me on Instagram, asked her friends to stalk me, and forbade him from posting pictures with me or interacting with me online. She knew I had attempted to harm myself a few months earlier. At one point, she told him she hoped bad things would happen to me and that I would die. He did nothing. This experience destroyed me, and a year later, I am still trying to forgive and forget. My uncle stole the inheritance my grandfather left to my family 20 years ago, when I was a teenager. This happened shortly after my mother lost my father to cancer and her favorite brother to a heart attack. My mother developed depression and sought help from her mother, but my grandmother turned her back on her. Story 74. Cut my pictures out of his school yearbook, sent me notes in class that contained slurs, copied off my classwork, tricked me in the cafeteria daily, ripped up my favorite book, stole my fidget toys and destroyed them, vandalized my locker with slurs, stole my pencils and snapped them, called me slurs when I walked past him, tore up my tests right before I turned them in, sprayed cologne around my locker. I hate the smell of cologne. However, I don't think this was intentional because his locker was next to mine, made rude comments about my appearance, called me a furry when I am not, booed me every time I answered a question in class, spread untrue rumors about me, convinced no one to come to my birthday parties, made sure I had no friends, and severely damaged my self-esteem. No, he has not been punished for any of this. Story 75. I was an apprentice in a warehouse, one of only about 10 female employees. He hated me for simply existing. It all started at my job interview when he laughed in my face because my grades weren't good. I had to leave school due to health issues, yet I still had the audacity to apply to his company. I wore a t-shirt in summer while working, and he accused me of being inappropriately dressed, blaming me for the harassment I faced from male coworkers. He yelled at me for human resources and wanted to get me fired simply because he disliked me. He made up lies about my work and tried to sabotage my schooling. I never understood his issues, but later I found out he treated almost every female employee this way. He bullied some out of the company. He was an absolute jerk for no reason. His eyes almost popped out when I graduated with honors. He was fuming, and that still gives me satisfaction more than a decade later. Story 76. Let's see. Sold my addicted stepfather's Norco medications. Stole my deceased mother's jewelry. Harbored an underage runaway in my home whose underage son became pregnant. Faked brain tumors. Robbed my house after I left her. Totaled the nice car I bought her by falling asleep at the wheel. Let one of our dogs get eaten by coyotes. Embezzled my bank account and tried to gaslight me into thinking I had done it. Multiple times. Tried to convince me I woke in the middle of the night and tried to choke her. More gaslighting. Tried to convince me my brother was embezzling from a school music program. Threatening to turn him in unless we gave her son $10,000 she claimed my stepfather had promised him. Chased me around my truck with a knife, and when I locked myself in, tried to break my headlights with a hammer. Used hair remover on her hair so it would fall out because she was doing chemotherapy. Guilt me into buying her son a vehicle he totaled the next day while mudding. Had her son call me after I fled to say she was in hospice care and had weeks to live, yet she was still alive 8 years later. Wrote a suicide note saying she'd gone to kill herself, but her daughter found her hiding under a pile of clothes in a closet because her own dog alerted the daughter. Forged a letter from a doctor claiming she was terminally ill and berating me for not catering to her whims. Convinced me her doctor said she was suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning and coerced me into buying her a different car, the one she ended up totaling. Ran off the road and damaged another car, then claimed someone had run her off. Tried hard to keep me from my family because they didn't like her. Made me write a letter to everyone in my family saying I loved her and that they were treating her unfairly. At one point, invited a cousin, her daughter's ex-boyfriend, her son's friend, the runaway girl, her brother's ex-wife, and a down-on-his-luck old friend of hers to stay at my house. I had to feed them all every day. Contacted me relentlessly after I fled, violating a restraining order. All this in a little over a year. I don't hate her, though. I escaped. I'm better now. I hardly think of her at all. Therapy helped, and I've moved on. Story 77. I have been a type 1 diabetic since I was 12. I had a close friend who I played baseball with, and we hung out all the time on and off the field. One day, early in my diabetes experience, my blood sugar dropped suddenly, and I passed out while running laps on the baseball field. He came running over and was very concerned. He also stopped any laughter from the rest of the team about the situation. We grew apart for the next 3 years and met again in high school, where we had Spanish class together. At a party one day, I was eating a chow when Brandon shouted from across the room, "Hey Jason, are you sure you should be eating that? I don't want you to pass out here." Story 78. Elected to make my little undiagnosed self miserable for no reason at all. Was it middle school? Yes. Have they grown up since then? Hopefully. I still cannot guarantee that I would not try to take a few of his teeth out if we met again. Story 79. Ruined mine and others' lives. My former close friend being used lightly here, as we didn't want to be friends but were forced into that, is notoriously brutal and unforgiving. My current best friend was kicked out of our group, which led to a mental breakdown that is still ongoing. He lied to everyone, saying he was an abuser, a liar, and many other things, which caused me and others to distance ourselves from him. Eventually, he did the exact same to me. I don't know how I didn't expect it. Story 80. Hid the fact and burned the evidence that my stepfather was molesting me. She did believe me because she knew, but she was on his side, not mine. I really do have an ugly, evil stepsister. Oh, I should add she was 20. Story 81. Personally, I would say my best friend. I had been with my high school sweetheart for 5 years. Things ended because he cheated on me. It broke me. I confided in her and cried on her shoulder. She knew how broken I was from it all. I found out afterward. She was also sleeping with him. As my best friend, she owed me even more than he ever did. So yes, I blame her and hate her for what she did. But I also feel the same about him. I don't care what anyone thinks about loyalty. Yes, she owed me loyalty. She was my best friend. To top it off, she was married and cheating on her husband. Story 82. My brother contracted a disease, and his wife said she did not want to know about it or have anything to do with him, despite him giving her a fantastic life with houses, cars, and everything else. They were still living together intermittently. When my brother went to the doctor, he had a large amount of arsenic in his blood. Her family members were also visiting the house occasionally. Local authorities were called and inspected the house to investigate. He had his blood tested more regularly, and the arsenic levels eventually stopped rising. I know who was responsible, and they finally got divorced, but he passed away from his disease. I could not prove anything, but I would have liked to see her behind bars. I believe she had been putting arsenic in his food. I hope karma catches up with her one day. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.